Welcome to the Injury Law Pod, the podcast that explores and demystifies the complex world of personal injury law. Each week, Missouri personal injury attorney Eric Bartlett dives into the legal issues surrounding personal injury cases to help you understand your rights and options when seeking justice and compensation for personal injuries. So sit back, relax, and let's explore the world of personal injury law together.
Well, hello, Fran. You are one of the two law clerks that we had this summer working for us. And I thought it would be interesting to just take a minute and sort of interview you and our other law clerk, Drew, and find out a little bit about what you found interesting in working with us and what you've taken away from the experience. And I do plan on keeping you around. You're entering your third year of law school. And so we'll probably continue to have you working remotely. But, let's just talk a little bit about, like I say, your experience. And, first off, if you want, I know that last year you clerked for a judge. And if you want to talk about a little bit what you learned there, what you saw and experienced, and then we'll move forward to your experience this summer.
Yeah, so clerking for the judge was nice because I got to see the ins and outs of how the courtroom works and jury selection and all of that, which was kind of pretty awesome when I had to take evidence later. But yeah, I didn't do much on like the drafting and everything side, just little things he needed here and there, more of like taking care of juries and everything. So yeah, it was beneficial in its own way, but I was getting a little nervous because I hadn't been doing what I was doing here yet. And so I would hear people talk about what they did last summer, and I just kind of felt like, oh gosh, but in the end it turned out pretty good because I was kind of a step ahead in other classes, and some of my classmates hadn't even been in court. So it was nice.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of people don't get to actually see court going on before they become a lawyer. So what did you, just being in court, basically you spent a lot of time in the courtroom observing. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And what was it, what was the most surprising thing or the most interesting thing you kind of took away from just watching? I assume you watched criminal proceedings and like civil proceedings, things like that.
Yeah. Criminal is always interesting in itself. It was a little messy to see, in law school, they think everything's like super strict and written out, but seeing the attorneys kind of scramble a little bit made me feel a little better because not everything goes the way you want it.
Amen.
Yeah, but I did get to see some family law stuff, and so that was interesting too because that's its own whole beast right there. But yeah, I think it was just super interesting to see how everything is not what law school depicts. Kind of, it's different in the real world,
or what TV depicts.
Right.
Yeah. Completely different.
Totally different.
And not every lawyer is smooth.
No, I saw some, I wouldn't say bad lawyering, but some fun lawyering.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
And so then, yes, you came and you started working here this summer at Northland Injury Law. And just talk a little bit about what we've had you doing and kind of what you've taken away from it.
Yeah, so I've been doing, drafting memos and demands and letters of representation, petitions. I just did interrogatories, so that was fun. But yeah.
And when you talk about those things, so demands or demand letters that we send out to insurance companies when we're ready to try and settle our client's injury claim. And so you've been doing that. And then the other things you mentioned, a petition, interrogatories, those are documents that we create when we have to file a lawsuit. And as you've seen, we aren't always able to get things settled before having to take the step of a lawsuit. And so then you have to move into that stage of the process. And then I've also had you sit in on some depositions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those were both, I think, the ones you sat in on were workers' compensation depositions.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting because you sat in on a deposition that you actually did a lot of research on for the particular claim, because the insurance company is denying wanting to provide a client surgery. What did you kind of take away from all of that?
The depositions.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, it was, I mean, you see those on TV also all the time, and so nobody really knows what it's like in there. But it was just really cool, especially the one that I did a lot of work on, to see it like play out, because they do kind of take a while to see things, but that was pretty cool.
Has your experience so far in the real world, whether it was between the court or then working with us, has that enhanced your interest in pursuing your law degree?
Yeah, yes, it's so much better in the real world. I think it's so much better than law school. They're different. I mean, you're learning, sitting, listening, and then in the real world, you're practicing doing things like seeing clients, seeing faces. So that it's definitely motivating.
Good. And probably as most law students go, I would say the vast majority, you probably still don't really know what you want to hone in on once you graduate law school.
Yeah, not exactly. I mean, this was pretty fun. It was nice. So I'm keeping it open.
What is it that you found most interesting in this injury law world?
Well, I think there's like a big misconception about personal injury usually. Like, I don't know, some people don't like lawyers, and I don't know, personal injury, I feel like it's a bad rep sometimes. So it was really cool to see it actually happening, because I would see clients come in and usually the first thing out of their mouth was like, "Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done without you guys. Like, I didn't know where to go." And it's just nice to help like people who have been hurt, injured, wronged, and help them get what they need.
Well, I'm glad you got to see that, because like you, when I was in law school, I think we kind of grow up and we see all the cheesy TV ads, and then we just hear so much from outside forces about ambulance chasers and things like that. And so I was not interested in being a personal injury lawyer, but then when the opportunity came along for me to become a law clerk myself with basically this firm that is now known as Northland Injury Law, it definitely changed. I got to see what you've seen. I saw that the lawyers, were people that actually cared and weren't just out for money. That again was the message that I had been fed for many, many years. And I'm assuming that's kind of what you've taken away.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're just so grateful when they come in, and it's really nice to see them and see how much like we have helped them. Um, yeah,
And I don't think people understand, unless you've gone through it, just how difficult it can be with insurance companies. It seems like everything's hard. And again, the average person, they just don't know how or where to start or handle the process. And you've kind of been able to see what we do to move things forward for them. But yeah, no, it's interesting just to see the process from, when we first sign someone up as a client and what we have to do to start putting their case together, to again, when they're done getting medical treatment, putting those demand letters together. And there's quite a bit that goes into there to make sure we have all their medical records and their lost wage information. And we've put together the background evidence if witnesses are needed and things like that. I mean, was that all stuff that you didn't really understand until you got here, that that's needed?
yeah, yeah. I didn't know there was a whole other side of things like insurance wise, and I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot that goes into these cases.
Well, we've really enjoyed having you this summer. Again, look forward to having you on board remotely because you go to Creighton University.
Yeah.
And you're up in, that is Nebraska.
Yep. Omaha.
Yes. So you're a little bit away, but again, the beauty of today's world, we can utilize your services remotely. And I hope you have a great third year experience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran.
Yep.
Okay, we are talking with our other law clerk that we've now had for a couple, well, in person for a couple summers. Drew came to us after his first year of law school, was our law clerk here at the office, and then continued to work for us during his second year of law school, returned this past summer. So this summer you returned to Northland Injury Law and have been doing law clerk type work for us again. You're going into your third year of law school. And Drew just thought we'd sit down for a few moments today, talk about, what your experience has been like working here. And, it's always interesting, right? What's the difference between law school and the real world? And just kind of some of the things that we've had you doing and what your impressions have been being involved with us.
Yeah. So first big difference between working here and law school has been just the fact you actually do things that real lawyers do. At law school, you just kind of learn how to, find answers to questions or how to think about, a situation legally. But here, I actually execute those things. So for instance, in the first summer I worked here, drafting petitions and drafting motions and whatnot, those are things you don't learn at law school. You have to learn on the job. And so that's been really helpful to me. When I go back for my second year and we're talking about motions in limine, it's like, oh, I wrote one of those last summer. So I know what we're talking about now. I know what goes into it. And that's been really helpful.
All right. And so what are some of the most interesting things that we have you work on? Like what do you like or enjoy doing in this?
Yeah, so I think some of the most interesting things that I've worked on are when we have to draft a petition for a legal issue that we don't know the answer to right off the top of our heads. Eric's a smart guy. He's well aware of a lot of the goings on in the personal injury space, but sometimes you get an interesting situation where you need to do a little legal research and kind of come up with a creative argument for how to help a client out. And so I think that's the most interesting thing for me is whenever we get some of the nuanced issues that, aren't part of your typical personal injury case.
And I agree. Some of the, I think some of the most interesting parts of an injury claim to me are sometimes at the beginning when either we're investigating the facts of a situation and trying to figure out, is there a claim to make, right? I mean, is there going to be evidence that supports somebody did something wrong? Can we put this together? And then on the other part of that is sometimes there's a legal question that has to be answered, and you got to figure out, is there going to be a legal basis for making a claim? And so I'm kind of with you on that part. That I find that part very interesting. Sometimes we get in the middle of claims where clients are treating, we've established responsibility, things like that. And, at that point, there's not a lot for the lawyer to do. It's more of, following along with the clients. And then, of course, at the end, we kick it back up. We've had you write demand letters, things like that, which is what we send to the insurance companies. What have you, when you do those demand letters, I mean, anything that you've, or even a petition that we're going to file for a lawsuit, I mean, anything that you found interesting about that or something you didn't realize before you ever were here?
Yeah, so the things I find the most interesting are, how this affects the person, I think. So writing demands, we try to, put what their injuries are into words, obviously, and then we also will add personal narratives to that. And so I think one of the most interesting things about writing a demand is going to be how this affects your client. I mean, yes, the law and the accident itself are interesting in their own respects, but a lot of times you have to take step back and really focus on how that affects the client. And, sometimes it can be really, just a brutal injury for them. And those are tough demands to write because you really feel for the person, but, you're getting to help them out. So that's interesting and, helps you feel better about what you're doing at the end of the day. So.
And that's an interesting take you have because, when we go into a jury trial and we're going to present somebody's case to a jury, we always talk to them about what we call the most important part of their case, which is the non-economic losses, the harms and the losses that people have when they're seriously injured. And it's not just about medical bills and lost wages. Those are obviously crucial because it's a financial hit and has to be dealt with and made up for. But it's all of the little things that, unless you're in it or experiencing it personally, you just don't realize how much an injury can really affect so many aspects of somebody's life.
Yeah, it's those clients where you read they're having trouble picking up and playing with their kids or just doing simple household chores that, those are always the ones that you don't really realize in the moment, but, you think, oh, a broken arm or something, it's, it'll heal, but you don't think about in the interim what they have to do and how it affects their, just general family life.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you picked up on that because, like you said, that really is the most important part of these cases is all the little things that, or we get people, right? They went on vacation at some point after they got hurt and they weren't able to do this or that they normally would enjoy. Again, we see it in so many different ways of just how it can affect people. So I'm glad that you can appreciate that. So what are you thinking about? Have you dialed in? I talked to Fran, our other law clerk, and said, like most law students, most of us don't have really a clue as to what we're doing when we get out. But I mean, have you dialed in on interest?
Not yet. I mean, I do enjoy tax law, which most people find incredibly boring.
Yeah.
And like trust and estates, estate planning, I enjoy that stuff. So helping people protect their assets and set their family up for the best futures they can have, that interests me. But really, I'm still pretty open. So just kind of anything goes. We'll see. Maybe there'll be something new in my third year that piques an interest or something that I have to go do that now. I never know.
Yeah, and where is it that you go to law school?
So I go to law school at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
Right, which is is that almost to the northern part of, or where is that?
It's really far east in Illinois, and then it's about 2.5 hours south of Chicago, depending on where you want to go. So
got it. And of course, we had you work remotely last year, and we're planning on the same for this year. And it's been great, Drew. You've been great. You do good work, and we really enjoyed having you along on the team.
Yeah, thanks. I've really enjoyed my time here. I've gotten to learn a lot. I know this being a law clerk here has really given me a leg up on some of my fellow law students because I know there were things I was doing in my first summer here that they were just doing research projects at other firms, whereas I was drafting motions and petitions and stuff. So that's been really helpful. Thank you, Eric.
And we've actually had you go out and kind of do investigative work for us, and we've had like fall cases, and you've gone and inspected the scene and take pictures and measure and do all the things necessary.
Learning all the nitty-gritty parts of being a lawyer.
That's right. Yep, it's all important. Got to get the evidence put together. So. Well, again, thanks for everything, and appreciate you spending a few moments with me here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric.